Hey guys, so that time of the month again where I do my take of a meta-analysis, where based on the top 25 ranked players on Dueling Book, I use ygeoscope.com to find their 20 most recent replays and outline what decks they were playing and their win percentages based on different factors. And if you want monthly meta-analysis like these, then make sure to subscribe. So let's just get started. So this time around in April, I had 495 matches included, where I had to exclude a few matches because they concluded before any card was played, so you can roughly attribute 20 matches to the same player. To no one's surprise, Dragon Link takes the biggest cut of the pie yet again, and at the time of recording, Dragon Link won both the Remote Duel Invitational and LCS 12 on the same day, so congrats to Isala and Sebastian. Next up is Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll at 21%, which has just slowly been creeping up in popularity over the last few months and is a really strong versatile deck. And then we have Prank Kids, which after the initial release of Meow Meow Mew, the deck did not do as well as people thought, but since then it has now taken a strong position in the current meta. After that, we essentially have the exact same proportion of matches contributed by different decks. This includes ABC, Buster Blader Dragoon, and Cyber Dragons. This Cyber Dragon player was featured on DB Grinder's channel before, so maybe I should ask him if he'd be interested in doing a deck profile sometime. Anyways, we have Eldritch Dragoon, Mech Knights, which did see more popularity in my last month's meta-analysis. And then we have Dinos, which has shrunk in play among our top 25 players for this month. And finally, we have Subterra Dragoon, Heroes, and even Virtual World making a bit of a comeback appearance. And this time around, only 4% of the matches involved for our top 25 players involved an Eldritch engine, so that has shrunk a bit since the last month. A whole lot of decks playing the Dogmatica engine though, in some fashion, at almost 26%. Now compare this to last month's meta-analysis, which was about 2 to 3 days after the new ban list came into effect. You still did see Dragon Link as number 1. The picture here is of Dogmatica Ecclesia, but this represented Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll as well, so that was still number 2. And basically you see similar decks as this month's meta-analysis, just they were not as played as much this time around. Now our top 25 players won about 74% of their matches, and this win percentage is quite consistent as I always see it hover around 74 to 75% for our top 25 players. Now last month's meta-analysis showed our top players piloting more control decks than any other deck for the first time since I started doing these analysis, but this time around looks like we are back to seeing combo heavy aggro decks being the most played among our top players like Dragon Link and Prank Kids. Still a decent amount of control decks like any form of Dogmatica or Shaddoll or Eldritch decks, and a lot less representation of going second, break your board kind of beatdown decks like Dinos at 6%. Now when our top 25 players won the die roll, they chose to go first for game 1 87% of the time. This is of course generally the preferred choice for most decks, but that 13% that opted to go second intentionally would be decks like Dinos, Cyber Dragons, and Mech Knights. On the other hand, if our top players lost the die roll, they still did get to go first for game 1 about 16.5% of the time because they were going against blind second decks. So if you're a deck like Dragon Link, you take those because that's as good as winning the die roll. Now I usually cover the top 5 most played decks and break down their win percentage, but this time around, since we just have 3 decks that were played more than the rest, I'm just going to cover those. So first up we have Dragon Link, which won about 75% of their matches among our top players. This deck has certainly evolved over time, and now with the Dragonite Tiding engine, they seem to carry a lot more versatility because that Tiding bounce is really strong and can also bounce back the Mystic Mine, which they previously struggled against with decks like Dinos playing them. Their recovery game has also gotten stronger as well, with Tiding being able to banish and special out the chamber to get another search and provide a body, and of course Safer Than Grave has always been a good recovery play too. When they got to go first for game 1, they ended up winning 85% of their matches because being able to seal that game 1 is of course important in being able to seal out the win for the overall best of 3 match. But if they had to go second for game 1 because they lost a die roll, they won 61% of the time for their match. I think that is still a pretty solid win percentage, but of course a pretty stark difference when compared to when they got to go first for game 1. In terms of win percentage against different playstyles, at least for this month, looks like they did quite well against aggro strategies and beatdown as well, with a decent win percentage against control decks. While a beatdown deck like Dino is certainly a tough matchup for Dragon Link, I do find that the matchup is not as bad as it used to be, as Dragon Link has become more versatile, but let me know in the comments how you feel about that matchup. Now, Dogmatica Invoke Shaddoll is also a very strong performing deck, where it won 78% of the matches among our top players. It's funny how Invoke Shaddoll was once a tier 1 deck just before the pandemic, and then it just completely disappeared from the meta after Secret Slayers, but now combined with the Dogmatica package and just based on the top decks lately has really been popping off. Their use of Super Poly can really break apart Dragon Link boards as well. Now interestingly enough, when they got to go first for game 1, which is their preference, they won about 75% of the matches, but when they had to go second for game 1 because they lost the die roll, they actually still won about 85% of their matches. Now of course the small sample size is having an influence on this, and it's not saying maybe they should start going second, definitely not, but I think the main takeaway is that the deck is really balanced, and even if it does not get to go first in game 1, they are still able to do well and catch up and eventually win the entire match at a strong rate. As for the win percentage against different playstyles, really as balanced as you can ask for, with about 76 to 82% win percentage against a different type of decks. And lastly, we have Prank Kids, which won about 69% of their matches in this month's meta-analysis. I think last format the deck struggled because of Virtual World and VFT, but now that's gone, it is really showing how strong the deck has become with just having that Link 1 monster. When they got to go first for game 1 as they like to, they won about 77% of the matches, although if they had to go second for game 1, then they won only about 58% of their matches. Small sample size of course, but certainly a deck that does really well when able to go first. In terms of win percentage against different playstyles, this time around seemed to have struggled quite a bit against other aggro combo decks at 48%. Let me know in the comments if you play Prank Kids and if this makes sense at all. Against control and beatdown strategies seem to have a pretty solid win percentage at 81 to 88%. Alright guys, so that was it for this month's meta-analysis, a little shorter than usual, but hope you still found that helpful. Again, if you want to keep up to date with monthly meta-analysis like these, then make sure to subscribe for more. Take care guys.